Hello, I will be discussing three key questions on measuring learning. The first slide discussed knowledge, basic skills, and long-term transfer. For me, knowledge is important because I believe it gives that baseline. Like it kind of allows you to see the qualities or the knowledge that a child comes into the classroom setting with, which is always a great asset because it's always nice to kind of know what you're starting off with. Basic skills helps me become familiar with the student's skills or the things that they should know how to do. I find that sometimes you really get to see what a child can do in a new setting. A lot of times, parents, in my case, will say, "Oh, my child can do this and do this and do this," and we have to take a parent's word for it. But it's different when you can see a child in the classroom setting and really get a feel for what they can do. So that was what basic skills said to me. Long-term transfer allowed me to see how my students use their knowledge that they've obtained, whether it be something that they knew prior and have kind of extended on, or if it's something that they've learned new in the classroom. But it basically allows me to see how they individually apply the things they've learned to their growth and their play and their education. The next slide, assessing things that matter. So this one talked about how the instructional goals align with assessments. For me, my instructional goals align very well. And my assessments involving those instructional goals, come off a lot easier only because my curriculum in the classroom is high scope for early Head Start for my particular agency. And we use a system called Core Advantage. And Core Advantage allows us to monitor a child's growth throughout quarterly periods in the classroom setting. So what we're doing is we're assessing them all year long on their growth, on their development, on educational growth all year long. And that's an assessment in itself because at the end of each quarter, it allows us to chart where the child is, where they came from, what they do know, what they don't know, and it allows us to build our goals around that. So far as assessment, that system is an assessment in itself, and it kind of just makes it easier for me to be able to build those instructional goals for my children. The next question on the slide asks about a variety of assessments and how that may look for the children who are currently in my Head Start classroom. So with my curriculum, a variety of assessment isn't really offered. High scope and core is very, very stern when it comes to the way in which we implement the curriculum in the classroom. So when it comes to assessing, we have the PQA, which is the assessment of the entire classroom, which is done on both the children and the teacher. We have the ASQ 2 and 3, which is directed directly towards the children, and then it's the core. In this case, I just feel that it's the ASQ 2 and 3 and the core that applies directly to my children. And then I just explained what the core was and how that assessment works and just that breakdown. The ASQ is done in the beginning of the school year, and that just basically gives us a frontier view on what children can and cannot do when they come in the classroom. So it kind of addresses the knowledge that a child has when they come in. We do that assessment in the beginning, And depending on their scoring determines if that assessment is constantly implemented over time. But outside of that, we don't really have a variety of assessments in my program. The next question was, what do we do? Given the limitations of large-scale testing and the status of classroom assessment, what changes do we need to make to ensure that we are assessing outcomes that matter? Now, that one was an interesting question for me because I mentioned the Core Advantage program to you earlier, and it has about 32 areas that fall under about 6 to 8 sections. Now, Core allows us to give the parents examples of a child demonstrating growth in all aspects. Physical, mental, emotional, large motor, small motor, cognitive. So for me, in this case, when applying this question to my current instructional goals, um, my children, as well as my source of assessments, I would really say that we do assess everything. We assess the entire child. Everything about them is really addressed. So with this particular curriculum, we're strengthening the entire child. I did agree with Carly when she made the statement that she thinks that sometimes assessing a child can become repetitive. Um, when a child doesn't pass the ASQ, we have to constantly redo that. And I noticed that they do become a little antsy or overwhelmed or just sitting trying to be asked all these questions, go through those steps over and over again, becomes a little repetitive to them. So that does cause a problem. Also, I agree with Nathan when he said that he believes that the teachers are assessing the whole child. It's just that standardized testing places a lot of emphasis on what the state sees fit as being needed to know. So I just kind of feel like he had a strong point with that children are learning everything they need to learn from a teacher. It's just that the emphasis are placed on certain aspects of the things that they've learned. The next slide is assessments that serve learning. Which of the items on the list from page 20? Okay, so it asks me to choose one. Okay, nope, I skipped it. Let me go back. Okay, so it also asks me about what is a better way to assess, large scale or authentic. I truly believe the authentic assessment is the best way to assess a child, only because individualization of learning is extremely important. When you use authentic assessment, I kind of feel like it zooms in on the child and it allows you to teach them from an angle that works well with them. It does take longer. It is time consuming. That's the great part about early Head Start and being high scope. They allot us that time to really just dig in there and take the time to individualize that growth, making the assessments a lot easier to conduct, I guess you would say, simply because it lets us take that time in the classroom. That's why I agree with Carly when she said that a lot of teachers are a little afraid to go through that process because it's time consuming, and I'm just lucky that I don't have to go through that because I have that time. For me, an example of authentic assessment would be well, we don't really assess, like I said. So I guess authentic assessment would be if I would be painting with the children while discussing the different colors and then mixings of the paint. And then I allow them to kind of work independently and explore and just get a feel for that, go over the colors and continue. And then after, we will repeat this maybe once or twice that week so they can become more familiar with those colors. Then I would show them like color cards or something of that nature to kind of see their level of understanding. So that was me, having them plan and then actually going through the actions of it all, reviewing it a few times, and then recalling on the information that they had previously stored to kind of see if that assignment really worked or if it was a good idea or if it was something that stimulated them in a manner in which it was beneficial to their growth. So I guess that would kind of be an example of assessment in my classroom. We also do portfolios. It's not a requirement. It's not something that we have to do, but me and my partner definitely like to do that because we receive our children at 16 months and they leave at the age 3. So when we do those portfolios, it just allows the parents to see that growth from start to finish. Um, we like to do pictures, all of their artwork, them playing in the classroom with friends individually, just everything. That way, the parents can really see their child's changing and transitioning over time. Whether it's just them writing lines or circles, and then they go from scribbles to that to letters, the development of their language. So we do videos which are uploaded onto the course so they can see when their children were barely saying any words and now are saying words. So we do have that available. Okay, and now we are back to the slide where I was asked to look through a list of things and pick one. So I chose open assessment. With high scope, with high scope, it is usually just a goal set in place, and we allow the children to kind of accomplish that goal how they see fit. This keeps things open ended and allows the children to really grasp onto their learning style. It also allows me more room to scaffold their learning and just get them to really thinking of ways they could go about doing what they're doing. I like the open endedness because it allows them that individualized attempt, and every child doesn't assess or do things the same. So when you go that route, you kind of get to see how they learn. So that was really really good, and that one really stuck out to me. The next one. Also, I feel the best way to examine a student's work is to really look into the process that occurs as well as the results. A child has to be seen in their entirety to really, really get a feel for the way in which they learn. I have a partner in my classroom, so me and her come together once a week, and we kind of go over the core we entered, the notes for that week, and then we base that around the children's individual learning plans. And then that way we can kind of sit down and get a grasp on the route we want to take for the lesson plan that week. So that's kind of how I collaborate with someone to kind of go over learning or just share ideas. It's not mandatory, but it's something me and her like to do. Although we are supposed to do a week apiece for lesson plans, we kind of like to do them together every week just so we can have an open mind and be on the same page in regards to how we want to address our children and just assess their learning and go about strengthening the areas in which they are struggling in a little bit and kind of further enhance the ones that they're doing well in. So that's the only person who I really come together with to do that planning or to go over the learning strategies. It would be my partner in the classroom setting. And I do like the class out of textbook. I find it very interesting that we are assigned different articles, so we really get to look at things that are, yes, affecting learning and dealing with assessments, but it's not just from the book, it kind of keeps it interesting. So I just kind of wanted to answer that question for you. I think that's it. I think I answered all the questions from the slide. So yes, that was my viewpoint on 3 key questions on measuring learning.